Dr. Kınıklıoğlu is a member of the AKP Central Executive Committee, and he is the chairman of the Turkish-American Interparliamentary Friendship Group. He is also the director of the Center for Strategic Communication, a non-governmental organization that facilitates strategic communication both at home and abroad. Mr. Kınıklıoğlu.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great delight to be back at the Middle East Institute, as I spoke a couple of weeks ago. And it's a true pleasure to see, despite the heavy agenda in the city, to see such a large crowd continuing to talk about Turkey and the Middle East today. It's also a great pleasure for me to see my former instructors from Bilkent University and others, and allow me to appreciate their services and lectures and wisdom that we have benefited over the years and that allowed us to be here at this stage today. I'm going to speak for 15 minutes, and I'm told former speakers didn't allow for question and answers, so I'll make sure that you have at least 15 minutes for a Q&A. I would have wished to be on this panel because I have a specific interest in Russia, the Caucasus, and former Soviet areas, but we live in an age, and Turkey lives in an era where our foreign policy is now much more diversified and includes and involves much more different and diversified regions than we did in the past. Had I been standing here 10 years ago, probably this conference wouldn't have taken place in the first place, and probably there would have been 10 or 12 devoted Turkey followers in the room, whom we would all know, and they would all know what I would have to say, and I would have known what their reactions would be. But as we are engaging with our American friends throughout the week here in Washington, it's in one way gratifying, but also I think puts a lot of responsibility on Turkish decision makers' shoulders to the extent and geographical extent and also functional extent and diversification of issues and areas that we grapple with. Let me, from this point, move on to our neighborhood policy and then specifically come to the Middle East and the two issues that I know you have most interest in. Since 2002, since the AK Party came into power, Turkey has started to implement a multidimensional foreign policy that basically, instead of putting Turkey at the edge of Europe or as a country that was defending the southeast corner of NATO, situated mentally Turkey at the center of 5 intersecting regions: the Balkans, the Black Sea, the Caucasus, the Middle East, and the Eastern Mediterranean. Professor Ahmet Davutoğlu, then an advisor of Prime Minister Erdogan, now our foreign minister, articulated for the first time this concept called strategic depth, and commonly now dubbed under the zero problems approach. I prefer to call it Turkish neighborhood policy, and that's how I will refer to it. But since 2002, 5 consecutive years, the Turkish economy grew 7.5% average. Foreign direct investment from being annually $1.1 billion a year reached up to $22 billion a year in 2008. Turkey's soft power has increased in all those regions that I've listed. Turkey is seen as a young, dynamic, growing country. Turkey, in the meantime, has become a member of the United Nations Security Council, founding member of the G20, Secretary General of the Islamic Conference Organization, started to negotiate with the European Union. Now, when we started the neighborhood policy, I think there were many quarters who really didn't take us very seriously. When we began to articulate what we were after in 2002, 2003, there were many who were very skeptical. Up to 2006, I would say, I know many prominent Turkish columnists who were laughing at us when we were saying that we intend to be an actor in the Middle East. no one will take you seriously. That's what was said. The Arabs don't like Turks. Turks don't like Arabs. It's not true. We know that now. In 2006, that was those were the common lines of the internal Turkish intellectual discourse. By the time it came to 2007, 2008, those same people began to say that Turkey is playing an important role in the Middle East. And I think recent events demonstrate once again that Turkey will continue to be an actor in the Middle East. And when the charges, especially after the Gaza war, intensified about Turkey's orientation being shifting from the west to the east, or this famous axis change discourse erupted, we kept underlining, and I will do it today again, for some of you it will be a repetition in this room, that Turkey's engagement with the east, the north, or the south is not at the expense of its western vocation. On the contrary, it's complementary to it. A Turkey that has good relations with its neighbors, that trades with its neighbors, that engages with them, that facilitates people-to-people contact with its neighbors, is a more valuable ally to the United States, to the European Union, and that's, I think, we should see it. Unfortunately, the axis debate, or the orientation debate, is fully enmeshed with the domestic Turkish ideological confrontation in our country, and therefore cannot be discussed neutrally. But let me assure you, when we sit in Ankara and look from Ankara to events around the region, we never think that despite our grievances and disappointments we have with the European Union, or some of the differences we have with the United States, that we should turn our back and engage with the Middle East in reaction to it. Our neighborhood policy is correcting an anomaly of the Cold War years, namely the perception that not everyone out there were enemies, and those who know Turkey very well know that many decades we were brought up with the perception that Turkey had numerous internal and external enemies, which facilitated a more security elite-dominated state. We changed that. We said, no, it is possible to engage with our neighbors. It's possible to engage and have a cordial relationship with Greece, with Bulgaria, with Russia, with whom we had a very bitter history, fought 14 wars and lost 12 of them, with Syria, with whom we were in 1998 almost going into war because of the presence of the PKK leader in Damascus and the freedom of movement allowed to the PKK in Syria. As difficult as it is with Iran and others. And I think events over the last couple of years have proven that we were right. We have deepened our political dialogue with our neighbors. We have increased our trade with our neighbors. And we have encouraged direct people-to-people contact with our neighbors in the forms of sports, culture, and tourism. We have lifted the visa regimes with many of our neighbors, including Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Russia now up to 30 days without a visa, Georgia up to 6 months without a visa, and recently Greece, 3 days, up to 3 days without a visa.